Hi, everyone. For those of you who are joining, welcome. We're going to give it another minute or so for people to keep trickling in, and then we'll go ahead and get started. All right. Okay. I think we can go ahead and get started, and hopefully people will still keep trickling in. So welcome, everybody. It's a pleasure to have you here, and thank you for joining. We're really excited. I'm really excited about today's session. This has been, I think, the culmination of a lot of collective thinking and brainstorming and discussing, push and pull. As we try and work out what is our global strategy, and what is the path ahead going to look like for building markets in the current context. So my name's Radha Rajkotia. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Building Markets. I'm based here in Washington, D.C. I'm very excited to have three of our leaders from across the organization with us today. So Carolina Duran, who's our director for Latin America, Bora Arjan from Turkey, and Daniel Ney from Myanmar. And you'll be hearing from each one of them today, and I will hand over to them shortly. So today, we're excited to be with you and share with you our new 5-year global strategy. And I wanted to, before we dive into the content, I really wanted to just talk a little bit about why the strategy matters. So there are two key things that I really wanted to flag for you all. So one, I think it's just a culmination of the collective impact and expertise that Building Markets has generated over the last nearly 20 years. So working in some of the most challenging places across the globe, from Afghanistan to post-war Liberia to Haiti, but really thinking creatively and with impact about how to generate results for small business leaders and their employees across the globe. And the results have shown, we've seen that over that time, we've generated about $1.4 billion in contract revenue for small businesses. And that translates into about 74,000 jobs. So in that, and we've learned in that time that those results have lasted. So when we did an impact evaluation of our work in Liberia, we were very excited to see not only that there were strong results for the firms that engaged in our programs in terms of revenue and the contracts that they were winning, but more importantly, perhaps, that these results lasted up to 3 years later when we revisited those businesses. So it shows us that we were doing something right, and we were excited to take that now and think about how we apply that within the current world context. And that's the second part of the strategy that I really framing that I really wanted to talk to you about today as well. That right now we have rising global challenges that really are a threat to some of the progress and justice that we want to see in the world. So from war and conflict, so as we've seen in the past year with the Ukraine crisis and other crises across the globe, as well as the very recent events in the last week as well. That are the crises that are affecting people both in acute and chronic ways, And we need to find ways of helping those individuals reconstruct their lives and continue to protect lives and livelihoods across the world. There's natural disasters that are increasing. We've seen in our own experience just in the earthquake in Turkey, but then also more recently with earthquakes in Morocco, in Afghanistan, severe flooding in Libya. These have huge costs to people's lives and livelihoods. And we've seen the importance of small businesses in responding to these crises, and also regenerating and reconstructing those contexts. In terms of climate change, we're seeing again the increased severity of disasters, but also insufficient progress in achieving emission reduction goals. And this is something that countries are facing, corporations are scratching their heads and trying to work out how to address. And we know that small businesses have a role to play there. And lastly, aside from just the unstable and challenging economic conditions, we know that that these effects of all of these issues are not felt in a uniform way for all population segments. There are segments of the population who unfortunately have based on their demographics, based on their age, based on their gender, based on the zip code that they live in, or the status that they have as a migrant or an outsider within a society. All of these factors affect people's abilities to manage and overcome these challenges that I've mentioned. But it's not entirely a picture of doom and gloom. As I said, we also see with our strategy and with the work that we're doing, we see a big opportunity. We know that there are 3.4 billion people across the globe who are economically active. These are people who are going out and working every day, and they are resilient, they are problem solvers, but they are also vulnerable. They are currently responsible, small business leaders are responsible for creating 70% of jobs worldwide, and also the prevalence of their role in the economy in countries like Colombia and others, where they will make up anywhere between 60 to 90% of a country's GDP. So this is a huge population segment, and we see that this private sector focus and a private sector approach is really a means for us to be able to capture and address some of these opportunities and challenges. The second part of, I think, the opportunity that we see is that we have the approaches that we'll hear about, that we are discussing today and that you will find in our strategy, are really focused on relying on existing capital that is flowing through markets. We're not talking here about increasing aid budgets or increasing relief necessarily. What we are talking about is how to create greatest leverage so that aid money that is flowing is also leveraging existing capital that is flowing within the private sector itself. And so we're excited about that opportunity and finding a way to capitalize on that. So maybe let's go to the slides now, Jackie. So this leads us to our overall mission, and this is where we really think our what's framing our thinking and our approach here. You can move to the next slide, please. Great. Our mission, as we have revised it for our strategy, is that we want to build inclusive economies for small businesses so that all people have the opportunity to rise. And here what we're talking about is, again, the focus on small businesses as a key driver within the economy, but the all people focus is not only the people within those small businesses and their families and communities, but if we think about the economy as a whole, the corporates, the corporations, governments who are interested in making their economies stronger will also benefit from this. We will see a win-win all around through this approach. In the next few years, we've set ambitious goals. By 2028, we are planning to achieve a $400 million revenue goal for small businesses in our network. Just to put this in context, I mentioned that we've generated $1.4 billion over the course of our existence. So this is a very accelerated rate and pace. So this is essentially doubling the pace with which we are able to generate impact for small businesses compared to what we have done in the last 10 years. I mentioned that leverage is very important to us. So we are interested in making sure that for every dollar that comes to building markets in achieving these goals, that results in $10 of value for small businesses in our network. So this would be beating many industry comparators and is within reach in terms of the approach and model that we use. We also want to see that we are increasing the number of businesses that we're supporting through our network. So we know that some small businesses are going to be successful, but we don't want to just keep picking winners. We want to be able to really increase the reach and benefit that small businesses are able to accrue. Okay, so let's go now. I'm delighted to introduce you to our panelists. I will invite you to read the strategy and you will hear more and we will share the links at the end of the session, but please do read the strategy and connect with us. I'm very excited to have Bora, Daniel, and Carolina with us. They're honestly three of the smartest and also nicest people you will come across. So we're delighted to have them in the building markets team. And they will, we're not going to run through the strategy as a whole today. What we think is, you will be able to have a look at that and in your own time. But what we will do is each one of them will be speaking about what really the strategy means in their context, how it translates, and diving into specific elements of our strategic direction as we go forward. So Carolina, I'll hand over to you now.
Well, good morning. Thank you, Radha, and good evening to all. Thank you for inviting me to this panel, and also thank you for inviting me to be part of Building Markets. I am Carolina Duran. I have more than 2 decades of experience in economic development, both from the private and the public sector, and in 4 continents. I've worked internationally a lot, even though I'm now based in Bogota, in Colombia, back to my home country. And I have joined recently Building Markets, and I have the mission to expand and deploy this strategy and the appropriation of how this strategy will be implemented in Latin America. We're starting through Colombia. Colombia is the entry point for Latin America, and mainly we're based in focusing now geographically in Bogota region, wider region, Cundinamarca being the department, and Valley, El Valle del Cauca. And that also is because of what Radha just mentioned. We have the capacity, the people who have the willingness, the formality, the structure, the productive structure to be able to meet the goals that we're envisioning through Building Markets, but also they have the need to be helped through that process in order to grow. So the question that I was asked here to pose for you is, why are these economies not inclusive for small businesses, especially for those small businesses that come from marginalized economies? And the challenges are various. So we'll go back to our presentation. Obviously, doing business is hard anywhere in the world, and doing formal business is also expensive. It pays off, but it's very expensive. In Latin America, is also very expensive to be formal. But if you take into account the difficulties, the asymmetries that the market presents to have a business, a formal business, and grow, and you add another layer of difficulty when you are a marginalized community, being a displaced community or being a woman-led small business or being a refugee, well, that is even harder. to reach the goals in terms of sales, in terms of growth, in terms of new markets. So when we looked into what we will be doing in Latin America and in Colombia, we did not only define the region, but also what we meant by small businesses. So here's the definition, and it's less than 50 employees. So we could maintain that small characteristic, but still it has a proven track record. They're already selling goods and services. They're already not in incubation stage, not in an ideation stage. They're already selling. They have a track record, and they are either formal or have a path to formality. In Latin America, 47% of our small businesses are informal. And that is very negative to our growing economies when you take into consideration that are the small businesses who account for 40% of generation of the GDP and for over 80% of the formal employment in Latin America. So that's a significant impact. And when you take the worldwide numbers into Colombia, we're talking about 5 million small businesses, of which 63% of them are led by women who are head of households also. So it's also a very important social structure, economic, social empowering structure that if well worked with could generate a lot of benefit for our countries. That's why in the next slide, we talk about how we use this powerful methodology, very simple methodology of building markets, of find, build, connect, to solve the huge problem of how these small businesses, being socio-economically vulnerable or coming from vulnerable communities, achieve their full potential. And understanding the challenge is very important to understand how we're going to address that challenge. And later, my colleagues and Radha will continue obviously talking about the different strategies we're going to implement to address the unfavorable operating conditions for the small businesses, how the small businesses leaders are not pursuing the economic opportunities they could and that exist, and why they're not doing that, and why the big buyers are favoring well-established suppliers. So if we unfold a bit this problem, it's not only about the market conditions and the asymmetries of the market conditions that are also part of our global capitalism. In Latin America in particular, we have a lot of distrust. So what we will be doing and what we are doing here, going into deeper into our root causes, is understanding where does that distrust comes from. And it's very cultural, yes it is, but it's also because we haven't been able to create a dialogue between the big buyers and the small businesses. More than putting out the opportunities out there, we haven't created that dialogue between the two of them so they can understand their cosmovision. This is how we call it in Spanish, how they see the world and why are they seeing it that way. So one of the things that we're doing completely innovative for this new deployment strategy for Latin America is that we are working very hard with the buyers. And we have designed a tool to work with them in understanding what their needs are, what their procurement needs are, but also what their fears are. So more or less what we're doing is working from the right to the left, or finding what the demand is, what the buyers need, and what they would like to purchase, and what they need to be able to trust the small buyers, the small sellers. And then we work our way back once we found these small businesses in building those capacities within them. So for now, Building Markets in Latin America has conducted 2 buyer workshops with over 40 companies from various sectors, such as textile, food industry, equipment, events, among others. And to date, we've identified over 700 products that could be linked to the business. Now, this is very important. It is not yet the core business. It's like the Christmas presents, something that they could actually test with, but won't really cause damage if for whatever reason our small business don't deliver on time or inform. So the situational context I wanted to tell you about this, about the asymmetries, is that the public sector in Colombia has, and in Latin America has the obligation, mandatory, to publish their procurement tender offers. For the private sector, that is not true. They don't have to do it. On the contrary, the regulations are so strict and they have so many certifications and requirements for the private sector that if they don't meet that very strict requirements, they might lose their operating licenses. So what they also fear is, how do I give them the chance, test them without being that negative effect for me if they fail? So that's when we start also talking to the private sector and the regulators and trying to see if we can do like a sandbox to test with private sector, big companies, big buyers who want to do inclusive procurement, inclusive purchases, who could test without having any penalties or having any of the certificates taken away. Because maybe, like in everything in life, once you test, you might also fail in the process. So the buyers are understanding that they could do this, they could test, they could do the sandbox. And what we're trying to build in here is a robust training program to ensure, for example, price negotiation, definition of objectives, and most significantly, create a value chain for them that would later be embedded in the core businesses. For the SMEs, what they need from the buyers is flexible payment policies and understanding the cash flow requirements they need. So the big buyers, are now even thinking that they could also do cash flow or working capital for the small businesses when they have a tender offer they meet. So this is what we're working on. We have an instrument, we have a workshop, and we have now the tender offers are going to be published publicly, but also the advocacy we're doing with the government. That's how we're building the trust and addressing that trust deficit between buyers and smaller businesses concerning quality, delivery times, and quantity. And we also need to address the regulatory barriers. That's much more of a structural situation, but definitely BUMA, Building Markets, has been very relevant in being at the table, sitting with the government to help them see how important it is to be much more inclusive. So I'll leave it at that, and I will be open to questions later on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carolina. We can move forward, I think, Jackie. That's great. So thanks so much. I think we should, I should have also said, if anyone has questions, please do feel free to put them in the chat. And we will, obviously, we'll have some Q&A time at the end of this as well. So Bora, we'll hand over to you now. Thank you.
Thank you, Radha. Thank you, Carolina. Hey, everyone. I'm Bora Arıcan, country director for our Turkey program, and I'm based in Istanbul. I'm working with building markets since 2017, and I've been on various roles. Right now, I'm leading our programming, and today I will talk about how building markets drives impact and what are some key activities and channels we use. Can we go into the next slide, Jackie? So our global delivery approach has 4 primary channels to deliver impact to the businesses. These channels are supported with our market research and advocacy to influence policy and decision makers to advance resources and support for greater inclusion of small businesses in global supply chains and markets. So I'll start with the digital services. Right now, we have a business directory, tender directory, and an export platform that provides a critical connection between small businesses and potential buyers. So we are aiming to enhance the platform's ability and usability and add some features like refined small businesses and buyer data, referral and recommendation feedback, matchmaking opportunities, and eventually we are aiming to do contracting and transaction payment services through our digital channels. So right now we have 2,600 businesses listed on our business directory in Turkey, and we have more than 500 businesses using our tender platform actively. Also, our digital communication efforts have reached more than 62 million impressions to date. So our second delivery channel is the business data. So we are building our current data to capture processes and quality controls to continue providing a high quality resource for buyers, suppliers, and policy developers. So we are aiming to package this data for various new users, especially financial service providers such as insurers, investors, and lenders. So far in Turkey, we have surveyed more than 3,300 businesses, and 2,900 of those businesses are still active. And we have a very extensive data collection methodology. And we are looking to enhance this with our new global strategy. The next service delivery channel is market access training. Our bid training enables small businesses to access and win procurement opportunities and become self-reliant in their bidding efforts. So we will develop an offering for corporations and governments to increase the pipeline of available businesses that they can integrate into their supply chains. We'll also work with small businesses to address concerns that could keep buyers from bringing them into their supply chains, including speed, reliability, product quality, or service. For small firms in the business to consumer retail market, we will increase our focus on digital marketing training, which has shown excellent results. And so far in Turkey, we have trained employees and owners of more than 1,100 businesses. So the final service delivery channel we have is the access to working capital, which is a serious constraint for our businesses. A lack of access to capital and the socioeconomic barriers alike is providing a big challenge for our businesses. So in the upcoming period, we will prioritize the need for working capital as a core element of our services. We'll explore partnerships with niche financial service providers and seek to set up our own fund or seek out blended financing opportunities. So far, more than half of our network is interested and willing to access to working capital to grow their business and seek out new opportunities. And the average loan size needed by the businesses are around $25,000. Building Markets is supporting the businesses to access to finance, and so far we have helped providing the businesses with more than $3 million in investments, loans, and grants. But there's a huge potential, and there's a long way to go for us, and that will be a huge priority for us in the near future. So next slide, Jackie. So I'll talk very briefly about our theory of change, and especially on the activities and the impact. So the biggest difference in our new theory of change is that Building Markets will focus on the household level impact in addition to the business level impact with the new strategy. And also buyer engagement will be a key focus area for us in the upcoming period with our new strategy. So in terms of impact, the businesses we are supporting in Turkey has won more than $42 million in new business opportunities to date. And this has resulted in more than 8,500 wage employment opportunities. And these wage employment opportunities supported more than 47,000 individuals to gain or sustain household income. With our new strategy, we aim to increase this impact in the coming years. So finally, next slide, please. Yes. So finally, I'll talk about our journey with small businesses and buyers. So you can see in our services, our core model is find, build, and connect, and to provide an end-to-end service for the buyers and the small businesses that we work with. So our main activities is starting with identifying the right businesses to work with, capture their data, and provide an evidence base for our market research. And then build small business and buyer capacities with bid trainings, procurement webinars, digital marketing trainings, and one-to-one mentorship sessions. And then connect the businesses to market opportunities through our business directory, tender services, export services, matchmaking, and access to finance services. That's all on my end. Daniel, over to you.
Thank you, Bora.
Thank you. Go ahead, Daniel.
Hi, everyone. I'm Daniel, and I am currently acting as the program lead of Myanmar, based in Yangon. I've been with Belder Markets for about 7 years now, as I joined Belder Markets back in 2014. Globally, we have a number of strategic principles we plan to implement, but today I'd like to highlight one of the principles and how my team in Myanmar has been focusing on enabling small businesses to contribute to environmental sustainability and discuss why SMEs are vital with a specific focus on what we are doing in Myanmar. Also emphasizing the broader importance of SMEs in achieving environmental sustainability goals worldwide. Next slide, please. When we talk about the recycling landscape of Myanmar, it is important to understand that, as in many developing countries, the recycling landscape in Myanmar is also evolving as awareness of environmental issues grows. Much of the recycling in Myanmar is carried out by the informal waste pickers and small-scale collectors, which has been a significant part of the waste management system. Therefore, the efforts to improve businesses in waste management and recycling are crucial for reducing environmental impacts, especially in areas where waste mismanagement and pollutions are significant concerns. Next slide, please. Why SMEs matter for the environmental sustainability? It is also very important to understand working with SME is crucial for shaping the recycling landscape, since SMEs are deeply rooted in the communities and they understand the local environmental challenges, such as pollutions or resource depletions, and they can respond more effectively, creating local impact. In Myanmar, for instance, small businesses are often the first to feel the effects of climate change, and they're driven to adopt sustainable practices. And pretty often, SMEs are nimble and innovative. They can quickly adapt new sustainable technologies and practices, whether it is adapting renewable energy sources or implementing efficient waste management or reducing water consumptions. They can lead the way in adopting eco-friendly solutions. And to give you an example here, Shui Pyu 8, which in English is the Golden Plantation Bag, which is a forward-thinking recycling business from our network, made a significant shift in its operations by sourcing raw materials directly from landfill instead of relying on imports. And that transformative decision was made after the company tried the Belder Markets program. And over the course of the year, from September 2022 to September 2023, the company successfully purchased 240,000 vis, which is a traditional unit of measurement in Myanmar, and which is equivalent to 391 tons of PP plastic extracted from the landfill. That strategy move not only bolstered the company's resource sustainability, also exemplifying a unified approach towards both business growth and environmental sustainability. It also showcased how innovative thinking and responsible practices can align profit and planet-conscious principles. Additionally speaking, that company created the job opportunities for a whole village nearby the landfill. And globally speaking, and as you all are aware, SMEs are the, I'm not finished yet. Thank you. SMEs are the significant source of employment, but promoting sustainable practices, these businesses can create the green jobs, and they not only support the livelihoods, but also contribute to the sustainable economic development. Also, SME often have a more direct relationship with their supply chains. They can adopt sustainable sourcing and production practices, reducing environmental footprint of the products and also services. And when it's come to community engagement, SME can engage with the local communities more intimately, and they can educate and mobilize communities towards sustainable practices, also fostering a culture of environmental responsibility. Next slide, please. To date, Belder Markets Myanmar built a network of about 4,000 businesses, including more than 700 recycling SMEs from across the recycling value chain. And that recycling network collectively process approximately like 28,000 metric tons of PET, 92,000 metric tons of aluminum, and 390 metric tons of glass per year. These are just a few materials, and there are many other types of material diverted from landfill. In addition to that, waste diverted from the landfill, the SMEs contributed to a total carbon emission savings of more than 4.6 billion of kilogram of CO2 emission, and also water savings of more than 18 million of cubic meter of water per year. The reason why I'm showing this figure is to highlight that this is the impact created by merely about 700 businesses. Imagine if it was from 70,000 or 700,000. We believe what we have achieved is incredible, but we are not going to stop here, and our goal is to achieve more. We now are planning on piloting material recovery facilities, MRFs, to develop strategic assessments for the MRF to enable the efficient waste segregations, recycling, and resource recovery, thereby generating the employment opportunities and improving waste management infrastructure of Myanmar. We're also working on enabling new access to finance channel for businesses in our network in terms of carbon credit and also plastic credit. But the significance of SMEs in achieving global sustainability goals extend beyond one specific business sector or Myanmar's border. SME worldwide can collectively drive a substantial change. SMEs represent a multitude of sectors in industry, and each with the unique role to play the fight against climate change, biodiversity loss, and the resource depletion. To sum it up, SMEs are not just the backbone of economies. They are the driving force behind a more sustainable and resilient future. Their local engagement, adaptability, and innovation make them indispensable in the global effort to combat climate change and promote environmental sustainability. So let us all recognize and support the vital roles SME plays in this crucial mission, both in Myanmar and across the world. Thank you, and I'm going to pass you over to Radha, who's going to talk about how building markets will achieve your impact.
Great. Thank you so much, Daniel. Always giving us a great call to action and reminding us of the role that SMEs will play, not just, and small businesses will play, not just in improving lives and livelihoods economically, but also in creating a better and more sustainable planet for us all. So I wanted to just quickly, before we go to Q&A and opening that up to all of you, I did want to just talk quickly about how we plan to get to our goals in the coming years. So there's a few things that I wanted to highlight just in terms of shifts in our strategy. So next slide, please, Jackie. So there are a few core things that I would like to highlight for you as shifts, material shifts in the way that we are working and where we are focusing in the coming years. So first, I think, as Bora mentioned, it's putting people at the core of our strategy. I think some people question why is that the case? What does that really mean? For us, what that means is a lot of efforts that are done around small business support look at outcomes purely at the small business level. Are they increasing revenue? Is there job creation? We would like to go one step beyond that to really understand what is the focus, what is the impact of our work on business owners, their employees, and their household and communities. This is a material shift because there is very little, frankly, evidence and understanding about how interventions that support small business growth really can have an effect on people's lives and the well-being of families. We want to reduce the gap between small businesses in marginalized communities and their mainstream counterparts. As I mentioned, our history has been mostly in fragile and conflict-affected areas. We're now redirecting those efforts to also focus on fragile, conflict, developing, emerging, and developed markets, where we see there is a gap between small businesses for marginalized communities and their mainstream counterparts. The fantastic results that Bora was describing from Turkey really are focused primarily on, or the majority are really have strongest impact on the refugee community there. Similarly, Carolina's work that she has been describing in buyer engagement, the focus that we have there is really centered on displaced populations. So the small business segment that we are promoting in terms of inclusion has a demographic characteristic that puts them in a position of exclusion currently, but we are looking to see how we can improve that for them. And those issues are prevalent across the globe, whatever the level of development a country may have. We are, as Carolina shared in the root cause analysis, we are going beyond just the focus on small businesses in isolation, but really looking at the ecosystem in which they operate. So increasing our focus on buyer engagement, increasing the focus on policy and advocacy so that there is a stronger enabling environment for these small businesses. We'll also be looking at increasing and addressing this challenge in accessing working capital for small businesses. This is something that across the globe is a constraint for small businesses, and depending on where they are located, that is either harder or more challenging for them. In places like Turkey, access to finance, accessing capital currently comes with an interest rate of between 30 to 35%, and frankly, it is just not available to a lot of the refugee population there. So this is something that we need to find alternative solutions for, and we're committed to doing that. We are, for right now, what we will be doing is, in terms of our geographic footprint, is committing to our long-term presence in the countries where we already operate, and look to expand into a couple more markets that we will view as long-term commitments. So anchor markets where we would like to be able to promote in-depth programming and learning, so that we can continue to focus on scaling our model and approach. One of the things, as we share this strategy, we also do it with humility. While we have ambitious goals, we also recognize that there's a lot that we need to learn along the way, just to understand how our programming can be replicated across markets, what the most effective and cost-effective approaches are to expand reach, to engage in new partnerships, and to ultimately generate the greatest impact. So we have put in place a learning agenda that focuses on the kind of rich resource of data that we already have, but really allows us to, in a very intentional way, understand what the best way of engaging buyers may be, or increasing the pool of businesses in our network. The last piece is around a market-based approach to sustainability. We're very excited, and as I mentioned in my intro remarks, we're very excited about really leveraging the power of the private sector in creating impact. As I mentioned, we see that there's enormous resource, there is capital, there is resilience, there is capability, and there is in many cases willingness to engage with small businesses from marginalized communities. What we need to do is find a way to develop and expand our platform so that we are able to use those market-based approaches to create sustainability, both for small businesses, but also the economy as a whole. So those are a few of the kind of key highlights that I wanted to flag for you. In terms of how we will be doing that, this will require some investment, and so we are continuing to build our team. You will see, for those of you who follow us on LinkedIn, we often have new roles that we are creating. so that we are able to build specific capabilities around data, technology. We want to build on our focus around specific population segments, including a gender focus, as well as expanding on the work that we've done in Myanmar into new markets. We will be investing in investing in our digital marketplace, and so we will be looking for additional support to do that and investment in our technology. We will be building our working capital fund, and then also looking for flexible resources to support new market entry. So why, and I wanted to just close with this, is just why do I feel confident that we will be able to do this? And I think I'm returning now from a board visit to Turkey. And one of the things that kept coming up in the conversations with our board members was, you know, as they were seeing our work, was they were trying to get their heads around, you know, what's the special sauce? What's the secret that makes building markets generate results in sometimes counterintuitive ways? How are we both impactful and cost effective, but we still have this very one-to-one and tailored approach? And I think that for me, this is our special sauce. It's that our staff is made up of experts. We have deep expertise, not just in our leadership who you're meeting today, but also in the teams that we have on the ground from the private sector. We have a very strong commitment to evidence and data. And so we are constantly looking, our teams are constantly reviewing the data that we have to understand how to interpret what we're seeing and learning, and how we might be able to improve. As I said, we are very focused on in creating enduring impact. So aside from the impact evaluation that I mentioned in Liberia, we are also looking at long-term relationships with our businesses and monitoring on an ongoing basis how they are developing and growing, so that we can see these outcomes persist. So with that, I will close. Please do take a look if you can. We would love for you, whatever role you may be in, whether you are a small business owner, whether you are from a partner institution, a researcher, from a potential buyer, or a funding organization. We would love to be in touch with you. We are very collaborative in spirit and keen for us to create this impact together. So I will stop talking there, but I would love to go to Q&A with the last few minutes that we have. So we have a question from Hassan. Hassan Nidi. Apologies if I'm mispronouncing that. And Hassan's question is that we found the resilience for the most companies that are owned by refugees to be low. They are not resilient enough. How will you work on this via your next strategy? And Bora, perhaps for you, the second part is we need a different approach according to the context. For example, in Turkey, we need to help companies establish a consortium that includes refugee business owners so that they can advocate, work on information management, and perhaps a legal clinic to solve the issues. So Bora, would you like to respond to that question?
Yeah, thank you, Radha, and thank you, Hassan, for the question. I think the first part of the question is exactly why we believe so much in our new strategy, because especially the digital services and access to finance opportunities create an environment where refugee businesses sort of evens out with the other businesses that doesn't have the same disadvantages. So our main goal in the upcoming period is to provide digital services to all businesses to build inclusive economies as part of our mission. And this will enable whether the SME is owned by a refugee or not to access the same opportunities in terms of accessing the market. And also on the access to finance side of things, We are very aware that especially refugee-owned businesses have extra disadvantages in addition to the other business owners. So we are working towards that, and that's why we need to step in more in terms of setting up a working capital and also being involved as building markets as an intermediary on identifying the best businesses that are suitable for access to finance. In the second part of the question, I think that's also a very good point, and I agree with the idea that Hassan mentioned. So we are working towards making sure through our market research, through our snapshots, we are trying to make sure that these policy level and recommendations and challenges are identified. So, but also we are aware of the lack of advocacy for these businesses. With the Building Markets Network, we are doing our best to serve as a platform where the refugee businesses can make their voices heard, but we will work more towards it in the coming period.
Great. And then we have a second question from Ellen Lee. Thanks for the presentations. Very interested. What are your views on supporting informal SMEs, and is Building Markets working on any transition to formality initiatives? And then is Building Markets including refugees or forcibly displaced people? So for that question, yes, we do, as I mentioned, in Turkey and in Colombia, and we will be looking to do that in other markets as well, Ellen. But Carolina, maybe do you want to talk a little bit about the informality piece of that question?
Yes. So hello, everyone. I mentioned in my part that we are pretty much a very informal economy, especially after the pandemic. So we have to guide all these small businesses back into formality. Right now, our requirement is very simple, and is that they have this like formal structure called root, and that is quite simple to get. But then the next steps are harder, and the next steps will be more granular, in the sense that we would help them, for example, have formal employees, and then start doing what here is mandatory to have affiliation to the chambers of commerce anywhere in the cities is part of what is required to be completely formal. So that will be the next step, and so on and so forth. So we are guiding them through that. And it is very much necessary. Remember, we spoke about the asymmetries in the market, because given that those asymmetries are also lack to access to opportunities and talent and finance, as Bora mentioned, it's also because they're not formal, they can't access it. So once they have the information to those opportunities, that's one of the building capacities for promoting for them. We did choose those who are already there, but for the next steps, we will walk with them. And then one of the things they'll get also is the certifications, for example, in sustainability, or in when they produce food and beverages and goods that are food goods, they also need another certification. So we'll be with them. And that's another thing. The allies we work with in territory have those capacities to teach them how to do it and to guide them through that process. So it's not Building Markets providing that building capacity itself. It's working through the network of allies to get them through that path.
Great, wonderful. Thank you, Carolina. So one last question, and maybe Daniel, if you can answer this one, is just, and Carolina touched on it a little bit in her remarks on the allies. Could you talk a little bit about just how Building Markets in Myanmar works with partners and other ecosystem actors? Because I think this is also interesting and an important part of how we can build the ecosystem so that we can see better results for small businesses.
The question is, what do Building Markets looks for the partner in each market where we work, right? So locally speaking, and for the local level, I believe when we look for the local partners in the market where we operate, I would love to see the specific qualities and attributes to ensure our partner missions of promoting sustainability is reflecting our mission as well. And I love to see the local expertise in our partners which have the deep local knowledge and expertise in the specific market we are operating in, and commitment to sustainability. Our partner should also share builder market's commitment to promoting sustainability, and our partner should have strong connections and network where should work to promote the inclusions of marginalized groups such as women, minority-owned businesses, and since we do not have the refugee-owned businesses, we are talking about here the underrepresented communities. And also collaborations. I would love to collaborate with the partners who are willing to work together and collaborated effort to achieve the shared goals, and often involved with the local NGOs. A few of the NGOs we are working in Myanmar in a partnership with builder markets are already sharing the attributes that we are seeking.
Wonderful. Thank you, Daniel. Thanks so much. Great. So I think we are right on time there to close. So thank you for joining. Thank you for joining today's session. I would really encourage you, Jackie, can you put on the link, provide the links? I'd really encourage you to read the full strategy if you have not already. Please do take a look. We would love to engage with you. You can connect with us through our partnerships team, and we would love to hear from you if you are interested in collaborating or partnering further. We also please do look on social media as well, because that's where we will have a lot of our updates as we go forward. So with that, thank you, Carolina, Bora, and Daniel for joining. It's always great to hear from you and hear about the great work that you're doing. And I hope everyone has a great rest of their day.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Radha, for the opportunity, and everyone for listening.
Thanks, everyone.